This triathlon is strenuous. To be able to compete, athletes must be in excellent physical condition. By starting the race, the athlete declares that they are in good health and have completed the appropriate amount of conditioning to complete the race.
It's almost good to not know how hard it is. If I knew how tough it was or how fast you need to go or what you would need to do to get to the level that I'm at, you know, I might be intimidated by it or might think it's impossible to begin with.
We're all pretty stubborn and type A. We're goal-oriented individuals. We don't want to see failure.
Every year, thousands of athletes travel to Penticton, BC to test their stamina on the famous long-distance triathlon track. The course has hosted many elite races, including North America's first Ironman in 1986. This year, triathletes will travel from 50 nations for the chance at a world title.
As a kid, I did always wanted to be a professional athlete. There was one point where my parents had to sit me down. I was big into basketball, and they were like, "You're probably not going to make it into the NBA. Focus on your studies." And I don't know, maybe in hindsight, I should have been skipping class and running a bit more.
I did my first race in 2012. The night before, I was sure I was going to drown in the water.
I used to run just to kind of not get fat, like most kids, you know, who was in universities. I was involved in a car accident when I was 26 years old. Doctor's like, "Oh no, you can't run right now." And he's like, "Well, you can always like swim." I was like, "I don't know how to swim." So he's like, "Well, now it's a good time to learn."
My husband worked for Sport Check at the time and tried to convince me on the day of Ironman to go down and watch it. And I'm like, "Ironman? What's Ironman?" Okay, well, I'm not doing anything today, so I might as well. Rode my bike down there and I was like, holy cow, like what is this?
Covering 140 miles, including a 2.4-mile swim, a 112-mile bike, and finishing with a full marathon. Just to complete this race is an achievement.
It never crossed my mind that I would be a professional athlete.
I started running in high school and kind of took that passion for running to university. I ran 3,000 meter steeplechase, which is an event that takes, you know, around 9 minutes. So I'd come back in the summer and people would say, "Hey, are you gonna do Ironman this year?" And I'd be like, "No, like my event is 9 minutes, not 9 hours, and there's no swimming or biking involved." And they'd always kind of look at me and give me the same, like, "Not tough enough."
I was a couch potato for 60 years. Watched an Ironman, and I had that stupid thought while I was watching it that I could do that. There's really good energy here for this kind of training. Maybe it's contagious.
After years of watching, Simons decided to volunteer at Ironman Canada.
I was the guy that rides his bike in front of the third place male. On that day, there was a guy, Simon Lessing, that was considered like the best in the world. He was a great swimmer, great biker, and just a phenomenal runner, one of the best runners in the sport. But the beauty of the Ironman is he just cracked, he blew up. And so me being out there in front of the third place male, I got to see like the roadside view of this meltdown. You know, he was puking in the bushes. Simon ended up getting past by, I think, 2 or 3 people in the last like 2K section up and down Lakeshore. I just came away with this idea, and I think just seeing the race firsthand and seeing how these are just people and you could be one, but more so just this like idea that on any given day at an Ironman, everybody has a chance at the title. I didn't know I wanted to race as a professional at that point. I just knew I wanted to be a part of it and do more of that, you know, just that epic feeling you get when you finish something, you know, that's as tough as a triathlon.
Found myself super emotional over just watching all these people of all ages and sizes. Like, it was just absolutely phenomenal. Once I learned what the distances were, I was just like, I want to do this one day. This is awesome. Within a week or two, went and bought a road bike and rode to Oliver and back, which was like 75K, my first time ever on a road bike. I think I just about killed myself, but
To guarantee her success at swimming, 1 year in advance, Daisy signed up for a triathlon.
It's kind of petrifying. Thank goodness it was a pool swim. And I remember showing up and I was like, "Hey, where's the recreational lane?" And everyone was like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "The slowest lane." I came second last in the entire race because how I didn't come dead last is there was a girl who had a flat. So it was a very humbling experience. Generally speaking, I have this kind of stubborn streak in me that's like, no, I'm not gonna give up, I'm not gonna give up.
Those hills.
From there on, go a little further and further, and that's how I started my career, or, you know, my hobby, I guess, as a triathlete.
At 62 years old, George completed his first triathlon.
I started from zero on the swim and the bike and the run, but I went anyway and survived. And the swim wasn't great, but I got through the bike and the run, and it was sort of fun, and it just kept going. Motivation, though, I don't know where that comes from. I never had it before I retired.
What I love about the sport and what really brings people back and keep coming is that it's so tough, and you face adversity and toughness, and that's toughness in the training, and you have to do the training. It's not a sport you can just drop yourself into an Ironman and hope it's going to go well. You have to do the training even just to complete it, and it's such a long day that something's bound to go wrong. And somewhere in those rough patches you have to, as I say, get ugly, but you have to like find something inside of you, some kind of resolve to like get through that. If you're able to dig down and find something to overcome that, it's super rewarding. It's like you just get this feeling like you can do anything, and it's kind of the drug that keeps us addicted to racing.
Having no idea where this sport would take her, Jananette chose to test her stamina at Penticton's Ironman Canada.
I signed up for Ironman in 2008, having never done a triathlon before. No fancy gear whatsoever, just like super old school, just not what you would typically kind of see. Won my age category right off the bat. And I was like, oh, wow, like, this is awesome. The race qualified myself for the World Championships in Hawaii. I mean, I got hooked ever since then, kind of finding something that I was good at by mistake or by surprise, however you want to look at it.
Incredible determination and extensive dedication is required to even finish a long-distance triathlon.
Last year, I sort of thought I might stop doing this because I wasn't having fun. I was just about halfway through the run, and I just thought, never again, I'm not going to do this again. I've had enough. And before I even got back to the finish line, I had already thought, well, maybe if they qualify me, I'll take it. And I did qualify, so I'm back in.
To race in this year's World Championships, athletes must have qualified as either an age grouper or a professional triathlete.
For me, being a professional means that you're racing the best in the world. If you're a hockey player, you've got 82 games a year to kind of prove your worth and to kind of have some good games, and they average out. In our sport, you know, you might only do 2 or 3 Ironmans a year. You really got to make yours count, and I've been able to do that. I don't want to say the word I've been lucky, because it's been a lot of hard work put into it, but I guess maybe I've been fortunate that I've had a few really good races over the years that have kind of put me into the spotlight and really helped to you know, to advance me from a sponsor point of view, and also to win some prize money at these events.
Both amateur and professional athletes will race on the same course at the same time.
I've only done one Ironman, that's it, and that was in 2013. And I don't think I'll do another one until maybe when I retire, because it consumes so much time, right? It's just holding a full-time job and then doing that. It's just, I don't know how other people do it. They do it year after year after year, and they do sometimes 2 a year, and it's just, I just don't know how they do it. I just find I get too off balance in my life that my focus is just triathlon training and really eat, sleep, and dream it and everything about it. And I'm like, oh God, I can't do this. I am a financial analyst for Enbridge. We don't typically do a lot of training. I go by more of quality versus quantity. My weekdays are pretty well, at most, hour and a half.
After winning her age group at her first Ironman, Annette qualified to race at the World Championships in Kona, Hawaii as an amateur athlete.
It was my last longer ride before going to Hawaii. So yeah, it was 7 or 8 days before I was just coming back from Oliver down on South Main, and a car was turning right, and I'm not even sure if they even looked. They pulled up right beside me, and I was traveling about 30, 35K an hour. I don't know how people don't see cyclists, but we're invisible sometimes, unfortunately, and turned right in front of me, and I T-boned it with my head, shattered my helmet, and had a big bowling ball size contusion on my hip. I'm a very stubborn A-type personality person, and I'm like, no, trip's paid for, it's booked, I don't care what I'm feeling like, I'm gonna go and do the race. And had it set in my head that this opportunity may never ever happen again. My goal was to make it to the finish line in daylight. The race there is in October, so the days are quite short. I didn't, it was darkish when I came in, but.
Jen returned home and learned that the injuries from her accident were more severe than realized.
I developed epilepsy, started having seizures. I've actually suffered from moderate brain damage because of the amount of seizures that I've had. Just feel like I can't do things the way I should be able to do them. I couldn't bike by myself. I definitely couldn't swim by myself. Couldn't even sit in a bathtub in case I had a seizure in the water. There was no way I'd be able to do this sport. It felt like my life had ended at that point.
Jeff Simons would soon become a recognized name in the professional racing world.
In 2011, I was third at the Ironman 70.3 World Championships. It's kind of really put me on the map, and put me on the map as someone that has, you know, potential to compete for a World Championships. But even more so than the financial point of view from that one, and the sponsorship and the recognition, is more about the belief in myself. Going into that point, I was kind of at that, like, I believed in myself, but you're almost like questioning that, like, you know, like, I think I can do well, I think I can be, you know, at that level in the world, but am I really just using that as an excuse to put off a real job? And it was kind of like, once I hit that, it was like undeniable that, you know, that I had the ability and the, I guess, the work ethic to make this happen.
Most athletes train for at least 1 year prior to attempting this race.
Last year, in my training hours, I totaled just over 500 hours for the entire year, swimming, biking, running. I think there'll be a little more of a run focus this year than last year, and I want to also push a little harder on the bike. With the swim, I can't gain a whole lot of time.
I look at every race as a race against myself, and that's where I feel more accomplished in that way. And so far it's worked. You know, I've been able to go to this World Championship, so I'm considered an age grouper, so, and most of us just do it for fun. You can't be training all the time, so I kind of do other different things like snowshoeing in the winter, downhill skiing, cross-country skiing. Doing the same thing over gets a little bit tedious and boring. I'm filling my water bottle, getting ready to go for my long bike ride. It's gonna be a hot one, so make sure I have enough salt tablets and everything too, because it's gonna be so hot.
The hardest part is more in the lead up. In our sport, it's all about doing the preparation. It's about doing everything that sets you up to have these amazing days. And those are the times when you're doing the savage workouts, or just making the sacrifices and doing the things you need to get there. You probably ride 3 to maybe up to 500K for me a week, and you probably swim about 15 to 20K. Biggest runs, you get up to 2.5 hours. That gets pretty close to 40K. But yeah, probably about 80 kilometers a week. I guess that'd be, you know, kind of 2 marathons. It's, yeah, it's harder than it sounds. I mean, everyone has up days and down days.
Jen was forced to adapt to a new way of life.
I've gone through a lot of stuff mentally within the last, I'd say, 10 or 12 years that I think has shaped me into the person I am now. Looking at it now, I do understand why those things were said, but at that time it was absolutely devastating to me. I was also told I couldn't have a kid. There'd be something wrong with that kid because of the risks with medication. Like everything that I love in life is gone now. So I went through a couple of really, really bad years with my seizures. They were under control and ended up having a son, and he is perfect in all aspects. So that was a miracle. That was, yeah. My seizures actually got worse after I had him, and went through a lot of medication stuff. I saw a specialist in Vancouver, went through a lot of testing with that, and because of the amount of seizures that I've had, I've actually suffered from brain damage. So I do have a major short-term memory issue, which has affected a lot of aspects of my life. It's part of the reason why I had to go on a leave from the job that I was doing, but it has actually made my time management horrible.
Okay, we'll go see Dad, and then you get to go to Sheeta's, yeah?
Having found victory in this sport so early on, Jen refused to let her injuries stop her.
I have definitely overcome that. I have found ways to obviously make this sport work, because otherwise I wouldn't be sitting here right now. So open water swimming, I'm never swimming in the lake by myself. I always have somebody with me or watching me. All the lifeguards at the pool know my condition and that they should be watching me. And during races, I get a different colored swim cap, and the swim support knows to watch for me. I hate to say it, but reality is if I have a seizure in the water with 2,000 other people, I'm not going to survive. That is reality. There's no way around that. Biking, I've obviously chosen to take that risk. And running, if I have a seizure while I'm running, the worst that's going to happen is going to be a road rash. That's kind of the way I've overcome it. I always look at the fact that there's many other people, even in this sport, that have way worse conditions and have overcome so many bigger things. My goal ultimately is to encourage people to pursue their dreams and hopefully inspire people. That's kind of my goal, to kind of put everything together with what I've been through, what I've been able to achieve, and where I am today.
Following several DNFs, Simon struggled to remain positive.
You know, Jeff's had a tough year on a lot of fronts, a lot going on in his life, personal life as well, and then you compound that with training stress load, and it's hard to handle.
The key to having an Ironman is being able to have a lot of good days, as opposed to having these really amazing days followed by these really crappy days, and these really amazing days and these crappy days. That's a hard way to really get that progression and get to that new level. Been able to nail out some unbelievable races, but also had a few kind of dry stretches of maybe injuries or not performing as well. So that kind of puts a bit more of the pressure on you to really to step up to the plate and hit them out sometimes.
After having incredible times following her return to the sport, Annette decided to take a shot at professional racing.
I think I tested the theory of you come back stronger after you've had a kid, and I was in the best shape of my life by May. There was a couple friends that were doing the Ironman in Coeur d'Alene, and they were like, you know what, you should really race at the pro level. Like, why would I do that? And thought it over, and I'm like, you know what, why not? If I want to go back to Hawaii and I'm gonna go back as a pro, I'm gonna have to start to race these girls.
Jen's first professional Ironman did not go as planned.
It was 50 degrees that day. It was when we had that massive heat wave that came through. So there was like a 27% DNF rate for that race. It was just horrific conditions. I walked almost the entire marathon, and it was like a walk, try to take in something, try to jog, end up being sick to my stomach. Like, it was just like a repetitive, it was not a good experience. I couldn't give up. I didn't want to. My coach was actually there, who was riding alongside me out on the run course, and he's like, if you want to do Whistler, you should really quit. I'm like, I am not quitting. Like, just leave me alone. I'm not quitting. Finish the race, and I'm like, sign me up for Whistler.
I don't exactly look forward to getting up at 5 in the morning, but once I get to the pool, it's great. You get in and go. Today we swam 2,400 meters. It was tiring, but it was really When I get out, it really feels good. This afternoon, I'll be riding in a spin class. Just the feeling afterwards is really worth the whole thing. It just feels good.
To excel as a professional athlete, Jen will need to dominate in all three areas of the race.
I'm pretty sure the world knows that my swimming is not the strongest. Right now I'm in the pool 5 days a week, really focusing on swimming. I am at that point in my career that if I don't get better swimming, it is going to negatively affect my race results.
Juggling this level of training is a challenge within itself.
Some days what I do to incorporate, to kill two birds with one stone, is I commute with my bike in, so I get a workout going in, and then I bike home also. And I do it on my old clunker of a mountain bike so that I just, make more effort. And then on the weekend, I just get on my road bike. It makes it that much easier, so yeah. So, because commuting in Calgary can be a nightmare.
Balancing training and life and racing it definitely has its challenges.
It's hard. We definitely work as a team together between my husband and myself. Yeah, day-to-day life is pretty chaotic, but yeah, it's basically just working together as a team, and family is always a priority, as is training, but family always comes first. You're okay.
Offer me!
There you go.
There's been many, many, many times that I've ran a half marathon before 6 o'clock in the morning, and then my husband goes to work, and my son will go to daycare, or I have him all day, and then when my husband comes home from work, then I go to the pool and go swimming.
Hey, we'll get your bike and we'll put it in the back.
Or if we're going on a road trip, I will set out 2 or 3 hours before my husband and my son leave, and they'll pick me up somewhere along the way.
It seems chaotic, and a lot of the time it is. I kind of joke that our life is a crazy circus, but we love it, and at this moment wouldn't trade it for the world.
The World Championships course will be monitored for technical infractions such as drafting.
Drafting is when I'm behind her, what happens is she will create a win for me, so I won't have to do as much work. I won't have to pedal as hard to even stay with her. I just might have to do a few pedal strokes. So in the triathlon, some are draft legal, but the one that we're about to do is non-draft legal. So Amy is in front of me, so if she is right there, I cannot be closer than this string. If I was to pass her, I need to pass her. If I stay behind her more than 25 seconds, it's considered drafting, and it'll be a penalty. Right now I don't feel as ready as I should be, partly because I've been just busy. I just know it's less than a month, and it's making me nervous because I'm hoping I'll be ready soon.
Despite having a rough year, Jeff's favored to win this year's championship in Penticton.
Definitely the bigger results you have, it's for yourself and other people. What might have been a great result, say 3 years ago, might just be like, well, whatever now. It definitely raises my bar of expectations, and then also just other people's expectations.
It can be pretty overwhelming, and the training load for a pro athlete is very, very high. This race in particular, in hometown, World Championships, he's felt a lot of pressure, and it's been hard for him to handle that and deal with that. Jeff's as human as they come. He's a very emotional guy, wears his heart on his sleeve. That's partly what makes him so great. That's partly what makes him so tough when, in the hard moments, because he can really dig, deeper than a lot of people can. But everybody has their breaking point, and I think it's been really hard for him this year when you accumulate everything.
Part of the pressure I feel is just to keep having that progression and better each race, which is kind of unrealistic. There's an old map of what success looks like, and what you want it to look like looks like this, and what it actually looks like is a bit of a
George's biggest challenge in finishing the race will be making the time cutoffs. With little time to the big day, he meets with his coach to strategize.
You know, you've got to average, you need to average in that 23 to 24 kilometres an hour range, right? We talked about, you know, in terms of pacing and cutoffs, you need to be up there.
I'm really slow on everything.
You know, a moment ago you talked about how important it is for you to run the run. Well, you won't get to do the run if you don't make that bike cutoff.
Yep.
Time cutoffs are put on each portion of the race. An athlete must finish the swim in 1 hour 40, be off the bike by 2 p.m., and has 12 hours to cross the finish line. Failure to meet these will result in disqualification.
Like from a nutrition standpoint, you want to get in as much as possible at each aid station. From a getting to the finish line standpoint, you don't want to stop and be putting drinks in cups, right? You just don't want to stop, you don't want to walk, because it's so hard to get going again, and it's going to be hard to get going again.
I find sometimes just the anticipation of waiting is the hardest thing.
The pros running multiple races throughout their season must be extremely aware of their training versus recovery ratios.
This is a bit of a tough time for me because I just did Ironman Canada in Whistler less than 2 weeks ago, and I've got the ITUs coming up in just over 2 weeks. So it's this kind of recovery train taper is definitely challenging, and that's why it's in the hands of my coach. That's why I have a coach, is to kind of guide me through that or this time. My ride actually went really good this morning. I did about 70K, so I just actually went out part of the ITU course. Of how my body felt after doing Ironman Canada less than 2 weeks ago actually felt really good. So it's reassuring that hopefully my body's coming around and this isn't just a little bit of a teaser lie maybe that I'm not quite ready, but no, it was good. Now I'm going for a run, a 50-minute run, so should be about, I don't know, 11, 12K depending on how the legs are feeling.
The caliber of both professional and age grouper athletes will be high, as it is a world championship race.
Winning here would be amazing. It would be awesome to have Jeff and myself as repeat winners, but it's going to be a very competitive field.
Well, it's a huge race, there's no question. I mean, it's the World Championship and it's in our hometown.
The race here will definitely be a high caliber.
She's going to go hard, there's no question. There's not going to be any holding back. We're not holding her on a leash. She's just going to try to have a good go at it.
When it comes down to it, it's who's there and how your day goes, and how everybody else's day goes for that matter.
Jeff's results have not improved, and he begins to crack under the pressure of the looming championships.
Fortunately, yeah, just it's been a terrible, terrible year. So, and then followed by 2 weeks ago, it was pretty good, and then I got a bit of an injury, and it all just kind of.
There's been some hard moments for that guy in the last year, for sure.
I think we have about 3 days till the race. It's coming up quick, but not soon enough. Just didn't kind of come together like I'd hoped. No regrets really on it. I mean, if you say what's gone wrong, it's not like, I mean, maybe lots of little things along the way, but I mean, you know, we set the goal high and we swung for it, and you know, the goal wasn't just to kind of do the best you can, right? Like we're going for it. We're trying to, you know, you look at where I raced and, you know, I made some bad choices. I, you know, chose to stay in Vancouver when it was pretty crappy weather all winter and kind of was behind the 8 ball, and we didn't back down. We went to, I mean, we flew halfway around the world twice to Cannes and Frankfurt, lining up against the best races and the best people, and you know, unfortunately I didn't have what I needed on those days to make it happen, but we kept kind of plugging away, and no, I mean, I'm kind of a home run hitter, right? And if you're a home run hitter, you swing for the fences, and sometimes you're going to crank it out the park and life is good, and other times you're going to miss horribly.
Jeff probably had the perfect storm of some stuff in his personal life, as well as, you know, a couple races that maybe don't go well.
I've had a lot of DNF meltdowns this year. I mean, in this, for anyone, they're always weighing up, you know, the decision to push harder, to keep going versus their motivation to do it. And the thing is if your motivation is based on qualifying for Kona or pleasing sponsors or getting a result, that can disappear pretty quickly if you're having a bad day.
Things we always look at it as purely a physical thing, but you know, there's other components to not only being an athlete but also being a human being.
You got to find a reason and a purpose for your suffering, and when you don't have an answer for that, then what's the point? Then you just pull the pin. Say, I'll go to the next one. If I have that mindset and go in on Sunday, it's probably going to be another meltdown and another DNF.
You know, if you got a good rhythm in your life and you feel good, and I don't want to say happy because it's not about being rainbows and unicorns about everything, but certainly if you're at peace and you're at ease with stuff, it's easier to kind of handle the harder moments.
I mean, it's tough when it's like, you know, this is a one-time thing in your hometown, and you know, you don't show up kind of with the tools that you need to do well. It's probably just gonna make it more embarrassing if I'm not hitting where I'm capable of, but definitely leading up, I mean, this race has always been a huge, being kind of the local favorite and all that, it's been a huge amount of pressure.
He's been through a lot, and I think maybe, you know, the pressure of this particular event in his hometown has been you know, overwhelming at times.
Yeah, it definitely feels more like going to an execution than a celebration, that's for sure, but
Whoa, that was hard.
yeah. But I mean, that's how it is, right? Like, I'm not gonna come here and BS it and be like, oh yeah, I'm going out there, it's gonna be great, and then afterwards be like, I don't know what happened. It's like, you know, it's like the art, like they say in the art of war, like the battle's won long before you get there, and it's like, conversely, the battle's kind of been lost, so.
How he does physically is gonna be a direct result of how he starts mentally. If he can arrive at the start with, you know, just focusing on himself and what he has to do and his executables and his sort of desire to just do the very best that he can, I think it'll go well. But he's got to get to the start with that frame of mind. And if he doesn't, I don't know what's going to happen.
After making the drive from Calgary, Daisy arrives in Penticton with 2 days to prepare.
We drove here from Calgary today, so it's been a long drive. We're on the road at 8 o'clock, so 7 o'clock local time, and there's just a wildfire that was going on just outside Kelowna, so people were, you know, rubbernecking and slowing down, so it was pretty crazy. 2 days of rest, and then we go and race. So many bags. I feel like I'm a bag lady every time I do one of these, because you got to carry, like, you know, your wetsuits, and then your, oh, I don't know, everything. And then, of course, the Canadian kit, everything is in here for Team Canada. So rode in it the other day, tested out, and it was like, didn't give me my, you know, girly bits any problems, so I'm happy with that. That's very important. So this is what we eat before race day. These are so healthy.
As race day approaches, contending athletes must pick up their race packages and attend a briefing on the rules of the course.
It's our numbers, our bib for the bike and run, and swim cap, just anything that we need to get set up and ready to race on Sunday.
Along with becoming fit and healthy, George has seen a huge difference in his life.
Actually, one of my new training things is coffee. I go for coffee 4 times a week. Socializing more. There's just a really positive vibe about the training and the racing and the whole thing.
His wife has also become involved in his new lifestyle.
When I go on my long 5-hour bike rides, she comes with me in the car and just follows, and she's got water and food and stuff on the way, and she works in the package pickup, and she likes working with the athletes and helping them, and it's pretty neat. I was gonna grab you. But then I thought, well, then I'd hurt you.
Yeah. Are you jumping the line, sir?
No. You wouldn't know that I'm just a shy, quiet guy by what I just was doing there. No, I was talking.
Athletes begin to taper their training leading up to the race. The decrease in training is a hard adjustment both mentally and physically.
When I get into taper, I feel awful. I will have the worst training days ever. It feels like I'm running a sprint and I'm barely even moving. Like, it's just, you have those days. They do affect me mentally more than they should. So for me, it's a battle of just reminding myself that the more I am training, the more bad days I'm gonna have. The more good days I'll have as well, but it's just reality kind of aspect for me is just not beating myself down for those bad sessions.
And has a great year, already 3 or 4 podium finish, a very busy season with a lot of race after this also. So it's a great season, it's a development season, and she's learning a lot, and this weekend will be a good opportunity to learn some more.
For recovery is probably my weakest point, just because I'm so busy as a mom that my recovery usually gets put on the back burner.
Oh, you're wet.
Yes, I'm very sweaty,
Why?
thank you, because I just went for a run. Trying really hard right now to focus on getting proper sleep.
She's racing a lot of girls that are very experienced, that have been some of the best in the world, and I think both of us are excited to see how that's going to turn out.
With 1 day to go, George heads out on his last swim.
George has come a long way with his swimming. He seems very comfortable in the water. He's got a nice long swim stroke, and he looks pretty good. He's spent a lot of time working on efficiency. This is really a personal challenge for George, and his real race is against the clock and within himself. Like, he's got to race to the rules, and there are rules for cut-offs. He's got to be out of the swim within a certain time, and he's well aware of that, and get off the bike within a certain time. So the swim-bike cut-off is something he's going to be very concerned with. You know, when you're about to start this swim in this race, you don't want to just think about how far you've come, like you belong there, you've qualified to be there, and you know just how you've prepared well for this. Like, everything you do with your training has been about this day, and you're as well prepared as you could be.
George, Daisy, Jeff, and Jen settle in for an early race start tomorrow.
You know, it's getting close to 12 hours before the race, and it's just the last kind of final preparations. Might go for a quick swim just to kind of chill out, feel good, and other than that, just get ready to roll. So really the goal for tomorrow, we kind of reframed it. Instead of, you know, worrying about the play so much, it's just going to be go out there and try and be the ugliest competitor out there, or just try and hurt more than everybody else.
As race day arrives, the athletes head down to the start line for their long-awaited shot at a world title.
Jeff will show up because underneath all the stuff he's going through, there's a guy he's a champion underneath that. He's shown that many times in races. He's showed up at races that, you know, he's really had to gut it out to either get a win or get a placing that's awesome. Just got to get this guy on the start line. You know?
It's very nerve-wracking. I won't lie to you because, you know, you don't know what to expect. I did not come from a swimming background. That is still very nerve-wracking, and especially with all the people like that. So I get really nervous about that part.
This sport is very much a mental sport. If your head is not in it, you're gonna have a very hard time succeeding or even finishing. You can be 99% fit. If that 1% of your head is not in the game, chances are you're not gonna make it.
Bike is my crucial part of the race. I've got to get through it to make my cutoff time. And it's going to be tight. To mentally prepare, I do a lot of visualization. I know the course really well. I can virtually imagine myself at any point on the race.
The success of an event of this magnitude heavily relies on community and volunteer support.
We actually bid against this cities in Denmark, throughout the Asia Pacific, and so we were chosen. I think partly because we have this rich tradition of hosting triathlon. You know, it is, I think, part of that iconic course because we have the vineyards, the lakes, the scenic views, the country roads, but I think really is a very supportive community and this volunteer army that comes out in droves, and I think that's one of the things that makes Penticton kind of special.
The race has a wave start, beginning with the pros and followed by each age group. The men's elite start is first, and Jeff Simons heads to the line.
Everyone deals with adversity. There's no, like, you know, perfect training. There's always going to be things that are going to happen.
Underneath the turmoil that guy's going through right now is a guy that's really willing to put himself on the line and really willing to hurt to get a good result. He's got the intangible stuff that you look for in athletes, which is an ability to really hurt when it counts. You know, he's tougher than anybody when he's actually racing.
Jen's group is next to begin.
We all have our doubts and dark moments, and I'm such a perfectionistic person. I expect to put in my best effort and have the best outcome all the time. I came out of the water last year at the race here, second last. So I had a lot of time to try to make up. I've always gone in with the mindset that the race cannot be won in the swim, so as long as I'm do decent and I can make up the time on the bike and the run, then I'll finish fairly well. Now at the level that I'm racing, that swim is making a huge difference.
With the pros out, George's group is called up.
Because, well, it's like going to the dentist. It's fine when it's done, but the anticipation is hard sometimes.
George!
My biggest advantage is self-confidence. I've never had the thought that I can't finish.
On your marks. No one getting a full start, and we just had one athlete who was a bit delayed in the previous shooting. He lost about 40 seconds as a result of that.
After months of anticipation and training, Daisy is finally ready to enter the water.
You kind of feel a little panicky.
On your marks. There we go. Ladies now underway, the first.
I find it's the first kilometer, but once I get into that rhythm, I'm like, okay, this is it now.
The athletes have 1 hour and 40 minutes to complete the 3-kilometer swim.
The swim, it was the same thing as it's been all year. I just mentally was not into it. And it was just a grind. It was just a mental grind the whole way. And I was so close to pulling the pin after the swim.
Jeff, go ahead, buddy.
Jeff Simons is ready to head out on the bike course, completing the swim in 40 minutes and 40 seconds. The direction of the swim course is causing some visibility issues with the rising sun.
When we first came around that first turn, I couldn't see 4 feet. I asked a guy on a paddleboard, which way do we go? And he pointed with his paddle. I couldn't see the paddle, and that was only like 6 feet away. I did just then see just a glimpse of the buoy and headed that way.
With a quick transition, Jeff Simons is ready to head out on the bike course.
The weakest part has been the last little bit has been the bike. I've definitely won races on the bike at the iron distance, but that's the one that I'm, you know, that you're putting in the extra work for sure.
45 minutes and 20 seconds into her race, Jen completes the swim, eager to get out onto the bike course.
Melanie McQuaid found herself a little back of the field there, but she's a great biker, as is Janet. In fact, there was 6 seconds separating them at the end of the swim performance.
Physically, I would say my advantage is my biking.
Jen is definitely one of the best riders in the world, but we definitely are moving her towards being a world-class runner. So that's where, for her to have success, it's about running very, very well. And that's going to be the strategy also at this race, to really make sure that we're not only using our strength, but that we're leaving a lot for the run.
If I go too hard on the bike, then I know I'm not going to have a good run. I think I'm definitely well known now for being able to track down the majority of the field on the bike. Within the last year and a half, I've been within the top 2 or 3 every race that I've done.
Okay, so I got 45-25 for the swim.
I know that I can make up a lot of time on the bike, but if I go too hard on the bike, then I know I'm not going to have a good run.
With the pros out of the water, the age groupers start to come in.
George has come out of the swim in good shape in about 1 hour 10.
Right behind him is Daisy, having now completed her worst part of the day.
Her swim went pretty good. She aimed for 1 hour and she ended up doing 1 hour 8:30. So that's not bad at all, considering the massive pack that was out there.
The swim was a little bit confusing because I had a hard time sighting, so it was a little slower.
The swim is her least dominating aspect of triathlon. But you have to accept that you're never going to dominate all 3. I think she'll make a lot of time up on the run. She's a really strong runner.
As the swim course closes, the rest of the athletes head out on their 120-kilometer bike ride.
And again, just a reminder, each of the athletes, in order to have been able to complete and move on to the bike, they had to complete the swim within 1 hour 40 minutes. But today, this is the serious business, of course, for these athletes. Don't forget, we've got over 1,300 people on the course right now.
My advice to George out on the bike course would be eat, drink, and just keep going. Don't waste any time. And that's where it's at. It should be the same for everybody. You've got to plan for a 30-kilometre run this afternoon in the heat. You can't afford to start that dehydrated.
I'll take in 400 calories an hour. If you don't eat enough, you can be in a world of hurt.
I try to consume probably on average about 150 to 200 calories per hour based on my height and weight.
Fast and furious in the men's division. A lot of people are hoping that they could see Penticton's very own Jeff Simons through. A reminder, he came up their swim in 17th position.
Out on the bike course, Jeff's race takes a positive turn, putting him back into contending.
Yeah, there's a down, like a rolling hill back into town, and being the local, I rode that a bunch and kind of focused on, how can I ride this? What's it going to feel like? And some guys that had dropped me pretty good on the hill, I was able to catch back up, and it was that moment where it's like, is it going to be a good one or is it going to be an average one? And I was kind of like, all right, I'm inside of these guys, I'm still in it, and mentally it was just a huge boost.
Jen has managed to make up significant time on the bike.
She's made up, I think, about 6 positions so far.
There might be a few scared women out there of me on the bike.
As Jeff pushes through the last few kilometers on the bike, Daisy reaches the top, a challenging pass.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I believe Jeff Simons from Penticton is about to hit the transition area. We got more riders have made that right-hand turn off of Main Street. 5 have just done that. We see an Aussie heading down there as well. And Jeff Simons is out onto the run, ladies and gentlemen. So he's in the top 10 so far. And don't forget, he was in 17th place at the end of the swim. So there he is. He's in 10th place, the local man. And this man can motor. He knows the course well.
There's a ton of pressure on me for this race, and you can't really escape the pressure when people are like, are you still going to win? Are you going to win?
And we've got more athletes heading down Main Street, making the right-hand turn here. There's a stream of half a dozen athletes that have just come on through. Jen Annette, if that was number 47, it is indeed. Jen Annette is gone through. There she is, the lady who's made up ground. You can imagine how good it feels for them. A little bit of shade still there right now for these athletes, but later on, that sun will be blistering there. As Jen Annette goes out on the run, 7 minutes 54 seconds back of our lead, but she is a strong runner as well. Now she's got Sally, Spildena, McBride, Kay, Pedersen, Wertel, Crowley and Fredrickson just ahead of her. I believe, therefore, she's in 9th position. Don't forget the other local, Jeff Simons, was in 10th position going out on the run. And we've just seen the top runner through. This is absolutely stunning to see how things are unfolding here. She can run, believe me. We never know what's going to happen when it comes down to the run portion. Some people might fall apart, whether that's heat, whether it's nutrition, whether it's putting out too much before going through.
Age group athletes will be on the course for hours after the pros. It is essential that they stay hydrated in this heat.
Still fairly early in the morning, the bike ride. We're a few hours into the race already, but it's only early. Like for someone who's going to take from 10 to 12 hours to complete this race, it's a long day, it's only early. I think he'd be doing quite well with the heat right now, but you do have to stay on top of your hydration, and it's going to get very hot this afternoon.
Jeff has finished his first 10-kilometer lap and is making incredible time.
My strongest part by far is the run. To be more exact, it's the back half of the run. So like the second half of the marathon, or the, you know, for the IT Worlds, like the last 15K, or where it's all kind of goes down, where I can keep that pace, whereas other people, and as I like to say, get it ugly or real ugly, and where other people start to fall off, and that's where you can make up big time.
After a quick bike time of 3 hours and 12 minutes, Jen completes her first lap of the run, looking strong.
The run always hurts. I'm not a big fan of loop runs in general. I think it just plays with my head. You should be done and you still have one more to go.
So you can imagine how good it's going to feel for other riders to come in shortly. Riders that will be age groupers. They'll shortly be off the bike as well.
Heading into the last 10 kilometers, Jeff's strength shows as he pushes for the line.
You just got to put everything you got, and you can't ease off the gas. You just got to go and, you know, hope that like mentally you can pull away. And it's like, I just know one thing about these races, you just bury it to the line and you worry about that later.
Bike, but there's Jeff Simons. He's looking good. He's got 10K to go from this point on.
George he's been out to Summerland on the bike and back through town. So he's looking good, feeling good, and he's out on the first lap around Skaha Lake. So.
Look at that. If you look down on Lakeshore Drive, there's a lady in red. That is the Pentictonite, Jen Annette.
Field is full of world champions, right? So, I mean, to be able to just compete with them is an honor.
The bike was really good. It was pretty beautiful around the lake, like both lakes. You got to go on the way out to Summerland there. Gorgeous. And it wasn't too cold. I thought it'd be cold, but oh my God, it's beautiful. And then you go out to Skaha. There's some hills, but you know, they're not like unmanageable, but they're just so pretty.
She's just finished lap 2, so she's come through. She's smiling, which is a good sign.
And Jeff Simons, it looks like he's got Francisco Serrano right behind him, and Serrano did a 3:01:34 bike split, so there's 16 minutes 40 seconds behind our leader, but Jeff looking good.
You know, it's been 11 months since I had a even okay race. You know, I had to kind of hit the bottom and kind of take a step back to start working my way back up the climb.
Starting her final lap, Jen finds an extra boost from her fans.
We've had 8 women through, and look who's right beside the next male that's about to come on in here. It's Jeannette from Penticton, currently, I believe, in 9th position.
The run itself is fun because there's so many spectators. In that respect, I like being local. It's fun. It's awesome to have the spectators out there. And
Jeff, if he can have a fine final QK here, he's within 7 minutes of the next 3 gentlemen ahead of him. So it'd be great to see if he can get a top 10 there today.
After a hard 11 months, Jeff Simons sprints towards the finish line, making his hometown proud.
I believe Jeff Simons is going to be top 10 in the world. He's at 3rd of the world at 70.3. The Pentictonite with a fabulous run to the line. He overtook 3 people during the 30K. Jeff Simons, he takes an 8th place. He's in the money. He's in the frame. 5:37 even. The time for the great Pentictonite. Well done, Jeff. Absolutely amazing. Very proud of what that man has achieved here. Don't forget, when it came to the swim, he was in 17th position. So between the bike and the run, he ended up taking 9 positions between the bike and the run. When you're in an elite field like this, he's got his friends, he's got his family, he's got his sponsors here at the line. Incredible to see we've got a local man amongst the top 8 overall.
Jeff Simons is back.
You know, it's not been a good year, and it was a terrible last couple of weeks, physically and mentally, and so to have a top 8 in the world coming off all that, I'm pretty stoked, and really stoked, and but more just I think this is going to set me up well for down the road, and I don't know, it just means a lot because I had to scrap for every little inch today. It wasn't my ultimate best, but it was my best effort. There'll be even better races to come. Oh man, that hurt.
Day is heating up, and I'm talking about the weather, I'm talking about conditions.
Off of the bike, Daisy starts on her favorite portion of the day.
I just love the run. I just feel so happy. I've always got this perma-grin when I'm running. I just feel liberated because it's just me, myself, and no equipment. So that is awesome. And I don't have to worry about drowning.
Over 6 hours into the race, George is giving all he has to make the bike cutoff.
We'll be seeing the next athlete to the line in the women's elite division. She's moved over to her right. She goes past Michael Brown, gets a high 5, and this is good, I believe, for 8th position overall. Coming to the line, and this is the local, so don't forget we had a top 10 in the men's, and we've now got an 8th position for a lady who's won the Peach Classic multiple times, won the Oliver Half. She's been at the top 2 and 3 at Ironman Canada. She's won challenge. That is Jeannette from Penticton.
The determined and inspiring Jeannette completes another great race, taking 8th place.
That was a crazy women's field, probably the toughest I've ever competed in, so I mean, all I could do is put it all out there and hope for the best. So, I mean, relative to where I finished, I think I did decent. I mean, obviously it's hot out, and definitely feeling the fatigue even from Whistler a month ago. So, okay, it was a tough field. So, I mean, I did the best I could do, and that's all that matters, right? So, there's women out there that I beat that I've lost to in the past, and whether or not that's me having a better day and them having a bad day, or my fitness improving, it's hard to say. So I'd like to say it's a bit of both, but I mean, our field was full of world champions, so that's, at the end of the day, it's how we put our race together, and I couldn't have ran any harder.
Although the majority of the pros have completed the course, the age groupers still have hours ahead of them.
It's more of a mental game when you start to do these long distance. So you have to like be mentally strong and just kind of be patient and break down in piecemeals. Because when you think of the overall distance, you're like thinking to yourself, man, that's a lot of distance, right? But so I start to break it down by increments of 10Ks. And that's the only way I could do it, like, or else it would just become overwhelming.
George makes it off the bike with just enough time to get out onto the run.
Just starting the run is hard. You know, you get off the bike, your legs are tired from the bike, and now you've got this half marathon to do that, yeah, you got to do it.
1 kilometer at a time, Daisy heads into her second lap.
I think she'll be happy with whatever she does. Like, it's just, I think it's an accomplishment just completing a course like this. Daisy's perspective, and I think a lot of athletes are similar, it's just an accomplishment to finish this race. You know, it's been a long season, so, and a lot of training for a lot of people, and especially like Daisy, with having a full-time job and trying to accommodate your personal schedule to get all this training in is dedication, to say the least. So yeah, she'll be happy to finish it whatever time she gets.
I do like the run, no matter what. It's still a beautiful run, like, you know, you still, but it's just hot, that's all. And I think I'm not the only one that's being impacted. I think the times, I don't even know what the times are, but I'm sure a lot of people didn't do a PB on this.
Motivation is a huge factor in completing one of these races.
Last year when I ran into the transition room going from the bike to the run, there was an older fellow there. He was just finished and he just couldn't go on. And he asked me, what am I going to do? And I said to him, I can walk a long ways in 4 hours. And he got up and he headed out just behind me, and we both finished.
George has 4 hours to complete the 30-kilometer run and cross the finish line.
Just seeing people who, you know, aren't really like fit, but just have the determination to keep going and stuff like that. And that's what I really get inspired by. I'll never forget, I was doing one of my first, I think, half Ironmans out in Sylvan Lake. And this gentleman, he was over 60, probably double my age, or even more. And I was like, oh my goodness, this guy's still like racing and really enjoying it and leading a very fit lifestyle. And I was like, oh my God, if I continue doing this, I could probably still do this. So whenever I'm kind of suffering through any of my races, I think back to people who are doing those kind of things. I'm like, well, you know what? My race isn't that hard after all.
I'm happy, like, just to finish on a day like today when you have tough, like the heat like that. All you want to do is just finish, because you're just like, I'm looking at my watch and I'm like, you know, forget it. I just want to get to the next kilometer, the next aid station.
Got someone else doing another lap out there, but it's 5:4.81 who's out there on the course. That's George Radhika.
10 kilometers into the run, George starts to struggle with the heat and the exhaustion. The current temperature is 31 degrees and climbing.
You know, ultimately the clock's ticking, he's racing the clock, and he's just got to keep pushing on. When he decides to run, he can run, and that's when he's making good time. He's just got to keep staying positive and forcing himself to keep running, getting it done.
As soon as the run started, I was like, oh, I got to get going. But it was tough. I have to admit, it was one of the hardest runs I've ever done.
As we see Daisy C in the women's 40-44.
With an incredible race, Daisy C has crossed the finish line.
Just the run was so hot. Thank goodness there was a lot of ice, but man, it's one of the hardest runs I think I've ever done, just the heat. It's all like arrows just to be done. Thank God. Very hot.
After racing for over 11 hours, cheers and encouragement help an exhausted George.
Good to see that he's in good spirits. Like, he might be hurting a bit, but he seems reasonably positive given how long he's been going.
I knew a lot of people, like there was a lot of people that I trained with. So they were getting people to yell, and so yeah, there was a lot of people. I don't know why so many, but lots of people. It does help. Not for long, but it does help.
Whether you are a professional athlete and complete this daunting challenge in 6 hours, or an age grouper that fights to the bitter end for a finish, Finding the strength, determination, and courage to keep pushing is an unrivaled accomplishment.
Grit your teeth and just like get ugly and just do whatever it takes to get to the finish line. That's what brings us all back. Because it's like you feel so empowered. Like you feel like if you can do that, you can do anything.
If you look alongside the peach at this time, you'll see there is another athlete on their way to the line, but it looks as though it's tough going in the final few hundred meters. And again, you look up there, we are now about 150 meters away. There's an athlete that will be appearing shortly onto the carpet, coming into the magical final few meters. And again, you can only imagine how good that feels. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. I know this gentleman, and get ready to welcome him and call him on through to the finish. So again, our congrats to take on the event here in terms of the time, in terms of the performance as well. Number 5481 is the man who now hits the carpet to be wrapping things up for himself. He is one of the great athletes in the men's 65 to 69 division. And now George Radhika out of Canada makes his way through to the finish line. Congratulations, George.
That was tough. Better than last year, but it was hard. Yeah, I don't feel much like a hero.
I'm very proud of him. He's done awesome.
There was points where I was struggling, just wishing it wasn't so much further to go. But no, I always finish well back in the pack. And that's okay, but I've never not finished at least.
As soon as you're done, you forget how bad it was, and all you do is remember the good stuff. Otherwise, you'd never sign up for it.
I think tomorrow I want to spend some time at Tim Hortons having a coffee, sitting.
How we doing?
I didn't see you.
Stuck up on you.